Welcome to Franchise Empires, where aspiring entrepreneurs learn exactly what it takes to become a successful franchise owner, from one location to 10 and beyond. I'm the Wolf of Franchises. Hey everyone, it's the Wolf. Today on the show we have Jim Kodman, a multi-unit franchisee of Vital Care Infusion Services. This is a different kind of episode, as Jim is the first and very likely will be the only franchise owner we have on this show that is in the pharmaceutical industry. Pharmacy franchises are rare, and Vital Care might be the only one in the country with this model. So it was a chance for me to dive into the industry, learn more about how pharmacies work from the owner itself, and we got to talk all things franchising as it relates to Vital Care and their franchise model. I hope you enjoy this one.
The Wolf of Franchises is the CEO of Wolfpack Franchising, as well as a creator at Workweek Media. All opinions expressed by the Wolf and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Wolfpack Franchising or Workweek. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions. The Wolf, Workweek, and Wolfpack Franchising may maintain positions in the franchises discussed on this podcast.
So I covered this franchise in my newsletter a while back, like a few months ago at least. And I was pumped to do that because it's a very unique franchise, right? There's not too many companies in the pharmaceutical realm that are franchising. So
I'm pretty sure it's the only one.
Yeah, I would guess. I've yet to find another one. I thought when I first just stumbled on the brand that it was there's all these like drip therapy places where you go in, you get like the IV therapy. Yeah. This is different. So I think just a good starting spot is for the listeners, if you could explain maybe kind of just generally what you guys do as a business.
Sure. So we're home infusion, specialty infusion. So it would be IV medications given in an alternate site. So not a hospital. Typically in the patient's home. We have most of the franchises would have an infusion suite on site. We do. We could be providing the medication to another infusion suite also, depending on the patient's location. But it's not typically hydration, although it could be. You mentioned, the vitamin C and just the general hydration that you see a lot. We're capable of doing that. That's certainly not our forte by any stretch. This would be a lot of medications, a lot of the things you see on TV, to be honest with you. Ocrevus, Tepezza, IVIG, Remicade. If you see it on TV, we're probably involved with it.
Interesting. So honestly, some of those, drug names, not familiar at all. I don't know what that says about me, but
it's a niche market.
Yeah. What is that, is it if you have a sickness or, what's a reason someone would walk in either, I guess they'd be prescribed potentially the drugs versus just over the counter, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, what kind of what's going on with your end customer, basically?
Sure. So they're certainly prescribed by a physician, or an ancillary provider like a PA or a nurse practitioner. We get a lot of neurology patients, MS, CIDP, a number of neurologic conditions. A lot of GI indications, Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, things like that. A lot of rheumatology, rheumatoid arthritis, psoriatic arthritis, dermatomyositis, a little bit of dermatology is mixed in there, some immune deficiency. Drawing a blank on other things right now, but that's a good
pretty
start
solid.
Anyways. Usually it's a specialist. It's not typically your PCP, although there's a lot of antibiotics, so you're dealing with people coming out of the hospital, maybe an infectious disease doctor, maybe a wound center.
Sure.
maybe TPNs as an example. So people that, for whatever reason, their intestinal tract doesn't work properly. So a TPN it's total parenteral nutrition. So it's all your food, but it's in an IV. So your gut doesn't work. So
Oh,
you're not eating. So you get hooked up to a bag for 12 to 24 hours a day that provides all your nutrients.
interesting. Okay. And okay, so that's a pretty wide range. So it sounds like there's quite a bit of I guess medications on the shelf, so to speak, in your pharmacy, right?
It keeps it interesting because you're dealing with a wide variety of patients, a wide variety of prescribers. There's a lot to learn. It's definitely a specialized segment of pharmacy.
Yeah, and let's talk into that because I'm mildly familiar, mainly just from the research I did ahead of this, uh, discussion. But the pharmaceutical landscape and even maybe the healthcare landscape definitely has relevance here too, right? I mean, why is a patient getting prescribed or not getting prescribed? Why are they actually having to go to your pharmacy versus the typical? I mean, depending on where you live, there's ShopRite here in the Northeast or Rite Aid or there's a bunch of different options depending on where you live. But yeah, how did you know Vital Care carve out some type of niche in this market?
Yeah, sure. You know, look, any condition if it can be treated, with lifestyle modification or an oral medication, that's always preferable. Nobody wants an IV medication if you don't need it. But some of these conditions, they're pretty severe. They're debilitating. If the oral therapies don't work, usually an IV is going to be third line, fourth line, maybe. Once in a while, second line. It's not preferential. But whenever the therapy is very specialized and there's a lot of coordination because a lot of our medications require a nurse. A nurse has to administer it. So we're coordinating the physician's office, the patient, the nursing, and ourselves. So there's a lot of moving parts to every order that's filled. But some of these conditions, you'd be amazed how severe the impact is on the patient's lives. And for our healthcare system, say what you want about it, it's certainly got its flaws, but there's some amazing things that you can see happen with patients. The change that we've seen in patients from the beginning to the end it's awesome sometimes. And we get to be a little bit more involved with some of the patients, especially if they're coming into the pharmacy for their infusions where we're seeing them on a regular basis, where you see them come in day one and, whatever the problem is, it's pretty significant and you can see it reduce over time. That's pretty rewarding just to be a part of that, when you see somebody's journey up close like that.
Absolutely. No, I mean, I couldn't imagine. Honestly, I wasn't totally aware of just I guess the severity of potential sicknesses and diseases that like your location could service. So, it sounds like, if I'm understanding correctly, that a big reason and a big draw that is different from the other pharmacies is that you do have that ability, right, to do the IV infusion on site, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. Your standard retail pharmacies are not going to be working with IV medications. It's just it's a little more complex. There's a lot of supplies involved. It's just they're just not set up to do it. Now, a lot of those retail pharmacies, like if it's a big chain, they might have a branch within that organization that would handle IV medications, but they're not going to handle it, at the corner drugstore, so to speak.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And given that you've mentioned, nurses and whatnot, what is could you give us a layout of a typical franchise? I mean, like, is there a square footage that you shoot for and typical, like, number of employees? as well as like, is it all nurses? Is it all licensed professionals?
Um, it really depends on the size of the franchise. I
Okay.
mean, we're on the larger end. There are franchises that are bigger than us. There's a number that are smaller than us, and you don't have to go back too many years, and we were a good bit smaller. Um, generally speaking, when you're starting out brand new, you're probably targeting like 3 to 4,000 square feet. Um,
Okay.
Depending on how you use it, um, would depend on what your total needs are going to be. Currently, I'm just a little bit under 11,000 square feet, but we're running a number of service lines out of here also. Um, so, we might have a little bit more needs from a square footage standpoint than some other places might. In terms of your staffing, I mean, you can start with a relatively small staff. We currently have 37 employees at this location. So you have everything. We have nurses, we have several pharmacists, a lot of technicians. We have delivery drivers,
Oh, wow.
compliance officer. You need an office manager. We have a nurse coordinator. Um, yeah, we've got quite a few here. Now I have a second location it's a lot newer and it's a lot smaller. At the moment, they've got pharmacists, technicians, and we're using a courier service at the moment for drivers. So you've got a wide variety of everything in between. You could have
Yeah.
us with 30 some employees, or you could have another location that might only have 5 or 6. So it just kind of depends on where you're at in the growth process.
No, for sure. That's fascinating though, just to hear how big a single location could get. Most franchisees that I've had in the show, or franchisors, right? It's I mean, we've had some home service groups and founders and owners in or on the show, but a lot of your classic brick and mortar type location that can go in a strip mall, like a lot of those kinds of concepts. So this is definitely pretty unique that one location is as big as 11,000 square feet and can scale up to 30 plus employees for that location. Um, yeah, it's fascinating. And uh,
And we're
how
also licensed in multiple states. So we're
okay.
located in Pennsylvania, but we're licensed to service Ohio, West Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, New York.
So is there, I guess there's a revenue stream because you mentioned delivery and I think in-home IV like therapy. So
Mm-hmm.
is that part of the business model as well, where you guys will actually send people out to houses to administer?
Yeah, the majority of people get it in their own home.
Oh,
So, I mean, ask the average patient, would you rather come into an infusion center, or would you rather sit on your couch in your own house and have the nurse come to you?
oh yeah, I know my answer. Yeah.
I think ever since COVID, everybody's realized I can do everything at home. So,
Yep.
you know, um, the majority of patients given the option are going to pick, let's do it at home.
No, for sure. And that actually kind of funnels in nicely to a question I was curious about. I believe I know the answer, but for folks who maybe aren't really as familiar with how the healthcare system works, right? I assume that, are the all your quote unquote customers, patients, right? Is insurance paying for the medication for the most part, or is it out of pocket? What do you typically see there?
The majority is insurance paid.
Okay.
Um, there's a number of assistance programs out there. Um,
Okay.
you know, some of the medications are pretty expensive, to say the least. Um, Most people can't afford many of them themselves. So a big part of our job is making sure, one, your insurance is going to cover it, because you don't want to get stuck with a large bill, at some point.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we're also looking to, insurance only covers a percentage. Everybody's got deductibles and copay or co-insurance and things like that. So, what kind of assistance is out there? Some of the manufacturers offer assistance. There's some government programs out there. There's, some foundations and things like that. So we're always trying to connect our patients to whatever form of assistance is out there to try to reduce their out-of-pocket expense as much as possible.
Yeah, no, definitely. Um, and so for you as an owner, because that's a unique dynamic, right? That you're the folks, paying you and driving your revenue aren't like technically your customers, right? Like the insurance companies are paying. So how does that look for you as the owner who's trying, at least if we're just thinking capitalistically in this sense, right? Like how do you drive revenue in that scenario? I mean, is there like, uh, are you needing to form relationships with doctors to utilize your location, or how does that work to really drive that customer base up and that volume up?
So, we employ a sales force,
Yeah,
and there are certain therapies that are going to be more profitable than others. If we're talking strictly from the capitalistic side of things, certain therapies are going to be more profitable than others. So the sales reps go out and target the more profitable therapies. Now,
yeah,
we've built this business on the belief that we're not going to turn anybody away. So there's things that we lose money on, but we're in a little different industry. There's a person at the other end of this that's suffering with some sort of condition. So we try to make it as available as possible. So, there's times that we'll take patients where we're losing money, or we'll get free drug from the manufacturer. So the manufacturer's taking the hit on the drug, and there's been times that we'll administer the medication and the patient doesn't pay for that. You can't make a habit from a business standpoint of doing that all the time, but
of course.
When you're in healthcare, you've got to remember there's a patient you're taking care of. And if you put profits first, nobody benefits from that. Certainly that's a component of it, but that can't be your sole focus, or you're in the wrong industry. Go find something else. And that's how we've operated. And we've been able to build a lot of trust with various physician offices and facilities and things like that, because they've come to know that we're going to put the patient first. And, it's a little bit of old school, just customer service and take care of the patient and do the right thing. And, the financial end takes care of itself. There's an element of that to it also.
Yeah, no, I figured there is still kind of that old school relationship driven element to it. It is fascinating, and you did mention, right, that maybe if someone's coming into it just with the profit motive, that they should probably find a different business or even industry to go into. Um, what was your path to, because I think that's an interesting angle here, is kind of how you ended up with Vital Care. Were you specifically looking at franchises? Do you have a background in this industry? Like, what would you say kickstarted your journey here?
So I've been a pharmacist for 26 years now.
Yeah.
I bought my pharmacy in 2006. I didn't franchise with Vital Care until 2015. So we'd already been in business for 9+ years before I franchised. I've always taken the approach that if a person or an insurance company values something or someone, they'll pay them. I mean, the easy analogy is athletes. If an athlete is successful and good and helps your team win, you get paid typically. I could see areas within pharmacy that the insurance companies were or were not willing to pay for. So, I tried to be where they were willing to pay because I figure they see a value in that. The IV realm seemed to be something that they were valuing and something that was a little bit more challenging. Just from a personal standpoint, like I get bored sometimes if it's like routine and run of the mill all the time. Like I like to challenge myself. It was an area I had hospital experience, so I knew about some of the IVs, but I didn't have a whole lot of home infusion experience. But it looked like a growing area. It looked like something where there was a need in our area. We're like an hour from Pittsburgh, about an hour from the city. So it's a little more rural here. I don't want to say we're underserved, but there certainly are areas that are served better than we are. And there seemed to be an opportunity. It seemed like when somebody needed an IV, they were always coming out of Pittsburgh to do it. And if you move further from the city, sometimes they were coming an hour and a half, 2 hours to get to some of these patients. So, I felt like being a little closer to them, we had an opportunity to provide some better care for those patients. So, it made sense. It was, it checked all the boxes for me. And I'm always interested in diversifying the business and what else can I do? Where's the industry going to be in 5 years? Trying to look into that crystal ball constantly. It's not a surefire thing, but, I at least like to think about the future, and I'm usually not happy with the status quo.
Nice. So 9 years, you said. Was there, I'm sure there's a variety of reasons, but what would you say were some of the biggest ones that you decided to, convert your pharmacy to a franchised pharmacy in which, of course, you're still the owner of the business, but it's a bit of a different ball game, right? With some franchisor, call it guidelines or guardrails, however you want to say it. What was the big motivator there to jump in with Vital Care?
Yeah. One, I don't think you could do this on your own. I mean, our competitors are extremely large companies. There's some services that Vital Care provides that I just don't think you could start from scratch on your own at this point. There's a few independents out there in the home infusion world, but they've been doing it for a while. I think it'd be virtually impossible to do it on your own. Also, I mean, Vital Care wasn't quite as structured when I franchised as they are now. They've grown, they've progressed. They've done a lot of really good things. When I first franchised, they didn't have the level of structure that they do now. Good and bad. And I think part of growth is you develop more structure over time. I think when you're smaller, there's a little bit more freedom there. But the level of support wasn't what it is now too. So, there's give and take with something like that. So when I initially made that decision, it was a little bit different. It was a different structure than what it is now. With opening a new location, I still think that to get a new location off the ground, I think you need the help. So, I opened one about a year and a half ago, probably going to open another one within the next year. I don't think there's a way you can do that without having some outside assistance, and they certainly provide that support.
Yeah, that's that's good to hear. And I mean, were you attached to any other company before you joined Vital Care, or were you were kind of like a mom and pop independent
Yeah.
pharmacy at that point?
Yeah, independent.
Okay. Yeah. And so you just thought, I mean, I assume when you say you're going up against massive companies, right? We're talking about like the Walgreens and the Rite Aids and all those consumer pharmacies, right? Or sorry, retail national pharmacies, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, like CVS would have Quorum or
Yeah.
CVS Specialty, so, multi-billion dollar companies.
Yeah. That's definitely tough. I mean, for this concept, do you have is that even I've been trying to find that on the website. Do you have to be a pharmacist for it? Or could theoretically, there are concepts out there, like I think like one example is the Joint. It's a chiropractic franchise. You don't actually have to be a chiropractor to own that. There's this whole legal structure that's referred to as like an MSO PC model. I was curious if that's part of like an option within Vital Care, or do you have to legally be a pharmacist to be the owner of the business?
No, you don't have to be.
Okay.
You'd certainly need to employ one,
Yeah.
maybe a couple. You're also vulnerable if you're not a pharmacist because, if your pharmacist leaves and you're not a pharmacist, you got to scramble to get somebody in there pretty quick. Um, but no, you don't have to be a pharmacist. Does it help? Probably. Um, but there's a business side to it also. So I mean, is there any reason why a business person couldn't do it? No. I think that it helps being a pharmacist. I would recommend it probably,
Yeah.
but there's plenty of owners that aren't pharmacists now and they're doing well. You've got to make sure you get, I mean, but this is always the case. You need the right team around you. So, you need the right pharmacists, you need the right nurses, you need the right technicians, and you can make it work.
Got it. Yeah. That's good to know. And I figured it was the case. So this is obviously like just a very different industry than anything that the listeners of this show has seen. And right, we've talked about the Walgreens and Rite Aids and CVSs of the world. I mean, um, is there like, with most industries, so food and beverage, for example, uh, people, expect around 10% margins, after you account for all your expenses. Home services is a bit higher, 15 to 20%. I mean, there's exceptions to these, of course, that beat these ranges. But like, what is it typical? And, there's retail grocery franchises and grocery margins are like 2%. Is there like a general range, just even, you know, not even necessarily asking about Vital Care, just the, you've been in the industry for quite a while now. Is there expected range for your typical pharmacy from a margin perspective?
I mean, pharmacy margins vary widely. Um, in in retail pharmacy, they're razor thin. Um,
Okay.
Honestly, they can be negative a lot of the time, surprisingly. Um, I'll have patients say, I saw my EOB and my insurance company paid you, $500 for that drug. And the problem is I paid 520 to get it. So
Yeah.
they are sometimes razor thin. It varies widely. Um, Depends on your therapy mix. I would, I don't know. It's hard to nail down a specific number because it's going to depend on your market and your therapy mix, and your insurance mix also. I would say 10 to 12% is probably at least get you in the ballpark, but that can vary widely. It could be bigger than 12%. If you market effectively, and you're able to generate a lot of, like I said, there's certain therapies that are more profitable. If you can generate more of those, you'll do better than that. If due to whatever reason there is, it could be your sales force, it could be just your market. It may be less than that. So, but I think that'd be a good starting point.
Okay. No, that's really helpful context. And I'm just sure, folks listening to it, would have been curious to learn more about that. So, really good insight. And as you look forward, you got 2 stores now. Do you have a goal, with Vital Care from like expansion perspective, or um, maybe, it's common for franchisees of one industry to go into other concepts of other industries, but it sounds like you have a specialization. So I'd guess no on the latter, but yeah, curious, do you have kind of any growth goals over the coming years?
Sure. I don't think any owner doesn't have a growth goal. um, we're probably going to open the third franchise within the next year. That's the short term goal. Um, I think a fourth franchise would probably just about be my limit personally. So there may be, once we get number three open, I think we'll start thinking about number four and make a decision from there. Um, and look, I'm always looking to diversify, whatever the method of doing that is. I'm always ears. I'll listen to whatever pitch somebody has to give me. Um, so yeah, I think I'd like to see some more diversification with the business. Um, I think that the larger Vital Care gets, the more contracting opportunities we have. Um, Last I checked, I think we're in 31 or 32 states now. We're over 100 franchises. Um, we
Yep.
have a further reach than we've ever had in the past. For the longest time, we were basically an SEC company, and then, now a Big Ten guy gets involved but now we're kind of spreading out across the whole country. So when you have a further reach, it just gives you more opportunities. So I think from a contracting standpoint, seeing what we can do in that area, what are the new services, there's always new therapies coming to market. So making sure that we're involved in whatever way we can with whatever the latest therapies are. Basically setting ourselves apart as being, on the front edge of everything that's going on from a technology or, advances in healthcare. I think you want Vital Care to be associated with, the idea that, we're at the very front edge of what's going on in medicine as much as possible.
Yeah, no, that's amazing, and I could imagine 3 pharmacies as well. That's a lot to handle. So, yeah, I mean, look, I thought it was fascinating, the concept, and seems like there's a great team there around you at the franchisor level too. So we're wishing you the best of luck, and if folks are interested more in Vital Care in this industry, and to follow you along. Is there anywhere online that's a good spot to do that, or to follow just the Vital Care franchise?
Sure. You can find Vital Care at vitalcare.com. It's all one word. You can find us specifically at advancecarefarm.com. It's PHARM. I'm not sure why I didn't include the ACY at the end of that, but we cut that off. I guess that made it a lot shorter. You can follow us on Facebook. We're just under Advanced Care Pharmacy, Vital Care. So you can find us on those locations online.
Okay, amazing. Folks, we'll link to those in the show notes. So if you want to check it out, feel free to click through. And yeah, Jim, thanks again for coming on, and we'll talk soon.
All right, sounds great. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for listening to Franchise Empires. We're coming to you soon with actionable insights to take the next step on your franchise journey. So make sure to subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you listen.